Should be good. Good. Okay. Should we? Okay. Bear with me 1 second. What are we doing? Okay. Here we go. Welcome, family, to a new episode of Transformed and Renewed. Thank you for bearing with us as we are now live. So, welcome. If this is your first time, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button on your screen. Okay, make sure you do that right now. Okay, don't want to miss doing that. Okay, and if you are returning, welcome back again. It's good to have you. We're going to be talking about the brain because this month is Alzheimer's month as well as brain awareness month. And, it's important that we really discuss how we can strengthen the brain. Yes, strengthening this up here. And because sometimes we don't really think about it, we can just put so much into our bodies, not only food wise, but even just stress and so many other factors that we don't take time to think about how is this going to affect my brain in the long run. And so it's important that we do take some inventory into what we are putting into our body. So hopefully by the end of by the end of this video, you will find some methods that you can implement and even feel confident that you are taking good care of your brain. And so as we get into it, one of the things that I always like to share is the definition, the meaning of the actual topic that we are discussing, because sometimes we can have a preconceived definition, but to me, I always think that it is good for us to at least understand the topic that we are discussing, and then from there we can go into some of the facts, details, figures, etc. And then we can get into how we can, in so many ways, avoid or even reduce the risk of encountering Alzheimer's or dementia. So one of the things, like I said, I like to do is explain the definition. So Alzheimer's is pretty much a subcategory or at least a type of dementia. Now, what is dementia? And at least based on the CDC's definition of dementia, it is pretty much not categorized as a illness, but it is more so an impairment, or it is a term that is given for the impairment when it comes to a cognitive issues. So let's say you may have, you start experiencing a loss of just memory problems. It's hard for you to think, it's hard for you to remember what you did with what. Sometimes you may not recall certain things that you did, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are in a complete loss. It just means that these are one of the, I guess you can say, symptoms of dementia. And let me pull it up here because, like I said, I want to make sure that I am differentiating between dementia and Alzheimer. So, again, one of the things when it comes to dementia is that it typically can affect older adults. Okay. And it can also interfere with some of your day to day activities. So, anything as small as trying to remember where you put your car keys, or remembering where you put a journal, a book, whatever it could be. It could be something that small to where you're just having trouble. And this could be repeated daily, or it could be every other day, where you are just not able to remember small things like that. And this is, again, common when we think about individuals that may be aged 65 or older. And one of the stats that I saw that was interesting is that a projected 14 million, because currently I think the last time in 2014 it was projected that around 7 million people had been diagnosed with dementia, or at least had some form of dementia. But by 2060, at least 14 million will have had dementia. So that is basically doubled that number. So over the next roughly 35 years, we will see an increase of about 7 million people, if not probably already 6 million, because I'm sure since 2014 that number has obviously increased. But one thing about dementia is that it's not a normal part of aging, and it has a lot to do more so with your lifestyle. And so let's transition to Alzheimer's because, like I said, dementia is more so a general term that is given for the impairment when it comes to the ability to remember or think or just use some of your cognitive skills that would have normally been simple for you to use, but now it is a challenge. Okay, so when we think about Alzheimer's, this is going to be slightly more advanced. Let's see, what do we do? Okay, so this is going to be slightly more advanced. This is a disease. Okay, so like dementia was just a general term for an impairment of some of your cognitive function. Alzheimer's is a disease, and this is a common type of dementia. Now, with this, it can affect part of or even parts of the brain, but it typically involves a part of the brain that can control the thought, the memory, and language. And so you may see individuals who do have Alzheimer's have struggles or even trouble with remembering a relative's name or even a close friend or someone that's close to them, remembering their name or even just a memory about them. You know, especially if you were to ask them, "Do you remember the time when we did X, Y, and Z?" And the person is not able to recall it. They may call you John or Bill when your name is actually David, okay? But they just may not be able to even remember who you are. They just may think of the first name that comes to their mind. And so that can be, a serious concern. Another thing that it can do, like dementia, is that it can have serious effects on the way a person's ability to carry out daily activities. So just being able to, you know, go to the bathroom and remember that, hey, I flushed the toilet or I brushed my teeth. But a person may say, why did I even go to the bathroom? And they may end up using the bathroom on themselves. It may sound yucky, but it's it is one of those real life situations to where if a person is in a mid thought and they are on the verge of doing something that is that is going to help them to just get through life and they cannot remember why they're doing it, that is a serious problem. Okay. And so, one of the things when it comes to Alzheimer's disease is that, like dementia, individuals that are age 65 or older tend to have it. However, younger people, okay, under this age 65 can actually encounter Alzheimer's. Okay. It may be uncommon, but it still can happen. And, with this number, just like dementia is projected to jump up to 14 million by 2060, the stats may be similar in these two categories. But when it comes down to it, sometimes the symptoms with the disease can start to appear at age 60, and then the risk just increases with age. And so it's one of these aggressive diseases where once it starts, it just continues to be aggressive. And so that's why you see individuals who do have Alzheimer's, they end up becoming, in this vegetable state, not necessarily physically, but in their brain, that's how it is, where they start to become a vegetable because of how a lot of the radicals in their brain are just trying to take over. And so that's why, when the risk increases, a lot of toxins, or just again, radicals, oxidizing agents in the body can just begin to proliferate. Um, Anything that is running rampant in the brain, even on a smaller scale, just begins to increase that activity. So it's kind of like when you have a, a scavenging agent or a free radical. Okay, and this is just like something that is running wild. It's dangerous for the body. Just think about this having babies, having seeds and more kids, and it's proliferating in your body and it's taking over, and your body does not have a response for it. This only leads to just a negative decline, eventually death. And so, it's not a good look at it, especially again, because one of the things about Alzheimer's disease is that a person, once you start to have symptoms, you could have been having that occur a decade. And I believe they say that a lot of times you could start to see or the progression, not you necessarily seeing it, but some changes can actually start a decade prior to you actually seeing the symptoms. And so the bad thing about it is once you see the symptoms, a lot of activity could have just been unraveling, could have already been in process. And it can be very difficult to reverse that because you weren't pretty much cutting it down while it was trying to run rampant that decade. And so again, it's one of those that if you can to detect it earlier, if you can do something about it, that is going to be best. And that kind of gets us into, again, as we get into some of the methods that we can avoid, the risk factors are pretty much similar when it comes to dementia. Age is about usually 65 years or older individuals begin to encounter this. However, there is a notion that family history can play a role in this. However, one thing that I can say about it is that when it comes to family history, it does have a lot to do with lifestyle, because a person can have Alzheimer's or dementia, and let's say the recipient, whether it's a child or even a niece or a nephew or a grandchild, they may pick up some of the same attributes or habits as their parent or grandparent or uncle or auntie. That can also be a link for you developing Alzheimer's by having those similar habits. But it doesn't necessarily mean that just because a family member has it, you are inherited with that. Because again, your lifestyle can pretty much be a clear determinant in you not getting that or even avoiding Alzheimer's disease. So that is one thing to keep in mind, is that lifestyle can play a big role. And so when it comes down to it, one of the methods that we can use to avoid Alzheimer's or even dementia is education, which is obviously why you're here, even, checking this out. But education is very important because not knowing certain things can lead you into that progression down a bad path. Okay. Even at ages closer to 65. But again, we know that based on, some of these research, at least based on the CDC, is that some changes in the brain can develop a decade prior to you seeing the symptoms. So if we know that people can develop this by age 65, we know that some changes can start by as early as ages 54, 55, probably even earlier than that, which means that there is some work to do between that time. Obviously, if you can start making some changes earlier, that is even better. But there is a time frame in terms of, okay, I need to start making some changes. Otherwise, this could be a reality, and it could also be a sad reality. Okay. Because the last time I checked, I don't know anyone who wants to deal with a brain disease and it is slowly just eating away at your life. Let's say you may have 15 years, 20, even 30 years of life living, but those 30 years can be the most excruciating, suffering years because of not taking time to be educated as well as implementing some of these methods. And so that's what we're going to get into briefly is discovering some of the methods, which to me you've probably heard some of these, but they are simple. It's not rocket science. I don't believe you can implement a lot of these today. And so it doesn't take much to start to implement some of these, but it does take consistency again in education and just being able to think about the future. How do you want to, go about life and spend, you know, latter years of your life? So as we get into it, some of the things when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, one of the questions a person may ask is, can this be reversible? Can it be treated? And, one of the things about treatment is that it can depend on various factors. Obviously, when this occurrence was first noted, so when were symptoms first observed, as well as when were there changes in the brain activity, lifestyle, and some other factors can determine the treatment for this. But I can tell you, at least from a holistic perspective, there are always areas of treatment, or at least areas in which you can implement to reverse or even to mitigate the effects of it, as well as being able to detect the disease is pretty important because sometimes it could be related to a vitamin deficiency. And that can be one way that you can actually implement a method or a strategy is determining if you have a vitamin deficiency, because sometimes having low levels of vitamins can cause other organs or even nerves or just different chemical imbalances in your body. And so it's important that you do get proper vitamin as well as mineral supplementation, especially if you're not getting it from foods. It's important to get some quality, okay? And I put an asterisk by that, quality dietary supplement, because every supplement that you see on the shelf is not quality. It's usually loaded with so many other ingredients aside from the main one that you need. Okay. So just check the ingredient label if you don't believe me, and you'll see a laundry list of just ingredients that are labeled inactive. Okay. Nothing really, helping you. So it's important that you really look at some quality supplements that either contain at least one or only one of the main ones that you need, whether it's vitamin A and that's it. Or even if you're looking for that, may have to go to a physician to get an actual vitamin itself, okay, without any other ingredients added. And so that can be one way. But one of the ways that we can avoid Alzheimer's or even dementia is by getting some good exercise, okay? Keeping the heart rate up, okay, is going to help more blood flow to flow through your body as well as your brain. And as you have more blood flow flowing through your brain, it just keeps a lot of pathways open. So there is slow traffic, okay, ever occurring when you have a lot of blood flowing. So you can imagine if you're on the treadmill, if you're doing any type of resistance training, keeping that heart rate up, keeping that blood pressure or even your blood flow flowing at a high level is going to open up some pathways. And so when you feel like your heart racing, say boom, 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 and that's good because that blood is able to again just have some freedom with flowing through different avenues, getting more oxygen. Okay. And it's also increasing your endurance, your stamina. Okay. So the more that you do that, you can also help with stimulating your brain. You're also challenging your brain to say, you know what, we could stop, but when your body keeps going, your brain's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And it's like you have different hormones that are being released, some good hormones. Okay. And so this is very beneficial getting exercise. I want to say at least 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise a week is recommended. Okay. And getting that amount weekly is recommended. Okay. So another thing is you want to manage, okay, manage your sugar intake. With this, another asterisk by this, because when it comes to sugar, added sugar is a common, and I mean it is a common denominator when it comes to health issues. Now, all sugar is not created equal. Okay. I want you to know that every, carb that you may see, sometimes people may say carbs are bad. No, it's not. There are two categories of carbs that I want you to know. You have simple carbs, and then you have complex carbs. Simple carbs are pretty much going to be anything that is in its simplest state. So you can think cane sugar, brown sugar, light brown sugar. You have agave nectar, molasses, syrup, anything in those category, even honey could be considered added sugar. Why? Because when you look on the back of the label, it would tell you added sugar. Typically, for a serving, you're going to see anywhere between 20 to 40% of added sugar, which is a lot, even for one serving. And usually, a serving can be anywhere from a tablespoon to two tablespoons. Even that is a lot. And so I know that when anyone orders anything from a breakfast location that has syrup or agave or any type, it is usually going to have a lot of sugar. Now, I know that different people may have different feelings about agave and other types of sugars, but nonetheless, it's an added sugar. Now, am I saying that you can never have it? Obviously, that's a decision up to you. But what I am saying is, if you are trying to avoid Alzheimer's disease and you know that you have a sugar problem, this likely could be an issue, especially if you continue down this path, because sugar, again, is a common denominator when it comes to a lot of health issues, especially as it relates to diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, as well as heart disease and even dementia. So, all of those, probably six that I named, are among top 10. So, those are six out of 10 common diseases, okay, in the states. Okay. So that is an issue. So again, one of the things when it comes to sugar is that not all sugars are created equal. Your complex carbs are going to include fruits, vegetables, okay? Typically when it comes to fruits, usually fruits with skin, so like an apple, eating the apple with skin on, usually blueberries because they have flesh and skin, strawberries the same way have flesh and skin. Usually, eating those are going to be better because of the fiber content, as well as consuming them with the sugar content is going to take time for that to actually break down. So, like simple sugar, like ground, sugar, or even cane sugar, it's already in its simplest form. Okay. But with an apple, that sugar is pretty much embedded throughout the entire product, meaning it's hard for you to even pull that sugar out. So it takes time for your body to even parse out or even separate that sugar, which means that's a good thing. It takes time for it to work with isolating, with breaking down that sugar. That's a good thing. So your complex carbs are also going to include vegetables, whole grain products. Okay. It's usually best to consume whole wheat products or whole grain products unless you have a sensitivity to gluten. But if not, then whole grains are typically going to be good in terms of complex carbs based on their structure. And then you also have legumes, beans, which are also good in carbohydrates as well as protein, low fat, low sodium, low cholesterol. Okay. So that's something to keep in mind. Focusing your nutrition on that, you're already on a good path with avoiding Alzheimer's disease. Okay. And so, again, those are just at least two other ways. Another way is, just by monitoring your stress, being able to focus on activities again that stimulate the brain. So, this could be anything from playing board games to doing puzzles to doing strategy games where your brain is stimulated, even the type of music that you listen to can help your brain to become stimulated in a good way to where it's thinking, it's relaxed, it doesn't feel distorted. So when you listen to certain types of sounds that can be distorted or can have a gripping sound nature to it, that can disturb the brain. Okay. especially loud sounds can throw off your chemical imbalances. Okay. But once usually more pleasant sounds that have a harmonious sound to them, as well as the intent of the artist with the music, things of that nature. Yes, you have people who study sounds and really get down to the psychology of this. And there's actually some research to show that there is validity to this. I think it was several experiments that was done. I know at least one that was done when it came to rice and the vibration and how vibration causes the rice where it was all separated and then to where the rice came together because there was a common or there was a I guess a harmonious sound nature to it to where the rice it was amazing how the rice all just came together. It started off all the rices were separated, but then they came together. The same when you have a flour, a study was done to where if you spoke to a flower, if you did not speak to a flower, or if you ignored a flower, it was just amazing seeing the transition over 3 days. How one flower died because it was ignored, the other flower started to wither because it received negative words. But then the one flower that was told, like, hey, you are good, it grew. Okay. Now that is amazing. So you can imagine what can happen when you start to, be around people who can speak positive words into you, and you can really be in an environment where you're receiving that. So these are again just some of the ways that can help with that. No, kind of going over, but this is just some of the information related to Alzheimer's disease. One of the things I wanted to share that I thought was interesting was, and I'll show it to you quickly. And I just thought that this was just funny. But let me see if I can share it. But yeah, it was just this post, it made me laugh because this was by the Alzheimer's organization. And this is on their website. So I'll show you their website. They're pretty much this month is Alzheimer's uh, awareness. But one of the things that I guess to me I just find astonishing is, what did I just tell you? Added sugar to avoid that. And what do we have here? Now, there's no, negative commentary, to this person who posted it, but it was just, and as well as not even the restaurant, but it's just me sharing how sometimes people want to, I guess, support different things, but not really be aware of how what they do can influence decisions because if you're trying to support Alzheimer's, and we know that sugar is probably the last thing, or even the last thing that should be on your mind, and we know that typically, at least from my observation, a lot of people as they get older, for some reason, tend to crave sugar. So if little kids crave sugar, older adults crave it just even more because I've seen it just oddly to where it's just like older adults have to have a sugar hit. And just seeing this almost full bottle of maple syrup just made me me think like, okay. And I know may not like this comment, but I'm like, probably not helping someone who eat this. Someone may begin to be in their first stages of this if they eat this meal with almost a half of container of maple syrup and about 6 or 7 pancakes that I'm going to assume based on the structure is likely not whole wheat because I know what whole wheats look like it what whole wheat is, and I can't see any traces of whole wheat in this, so I'm sure that it's plain flour. And so kind of like the the food science knowledge kind of jumps out within me when I see this, and I'm kind of like, wouldn't this go against the objective of trying to support something? So that is just me. Sometimes I wonder, like, are you really for, like, I guess per se ending? I can't never say something will ever end just because it has to really be rooted in people. I think if anything else, the organization is probably benefiting a lot. But then again, that's just my feedback. If y'all want to know a lot of my feedback, you can pretty much follow me on social media where I can pretty much go a little bit into depth. I don't hide, some of my views when it comes to different matters. Again, I am always for health, but I can't say that everything that has a quote unquote good cause is something that I always support just based on some of the things that I see that can be contradictory. Okay. I'm one person where if I see something that is contradicting itself, why does it make sense to keep supporting it? Because I then wonder what is your other motive? So again, that's just a side comment, but hopefully, at least from this, you can see that it's important to take care of your brain. Okay, keeping it stimulated in a good way, keeping your heart rate up. So getting some exercise in. Okay, getting some healthy food into your diet. So cutting out a lot of the condiments with a lot of added sugar, salt. Okay, excess fat, especially if it's not good fats like olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil in moderation. Okay. And it's important to just really be aware of, again, taking care of your brain. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you support us. We appreciate so many of you who have followed us. We are steadily growing. We are still doing some health coaching. So, again, if you have some health goals you need a push, or even just would like some additional education, because I like to share education here, but again, I can give you even more during our coaching sessions to where you can get a personalized dose of health coaching to where it can support your goals. You can start to see some results within a short time, but it's always based on your progress, how you're doing. And I would say it's also not only based on just seeing results within a short time, but it's also just seeing you being able to progress. Okay. That is one of the bigger things is, I want to be able to see you progress. And so if you are interested in doing that, make sure that you go to our website at robody.org. You want to click on that link on the home page, click here. I think it says that button. Before you even do any scrolling, you should see it. You click that button, fill out that prompt, should be a few fields, and you are all set up. Obviously, we do have some forms for you to complete just to ensure some legalities. But once you complete those, we are going to be ready to, see you on our first session. So make sure you do that if you are interested in signing up. So make sure again you navigate to robody.org, fill out that form, and we'll be looking for you. And until next time, I will be talking with you soon.